remember Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale of the naked emperor in a dress kind of made of invisible fabric? I think we've been going about this all wrong. That kind of fabric did in fact exist. Daca muslin is an ultra-fine cotton type that reached Europe from India via the East India Company. The Roman author Petronius wrote about the transparency of the muslin. "Thy bride might as well clothe herself with a garment of the wind as stand forth publicly naked under her clouds of muslin." Muslin didn't conceal nakedness even in several layers. Therefore, all the nobles, the wives of rich merchants, and Queen Marie Antoinette herself were accused of appearing in public naked after putting it on. Daca muslin was 26 times more expensive than the best silk. People found it hard to believe that Daca muslin could possibly have been made by human hands. Some believed that it was woven by mermaids, fairies, and even ghosts. The treasure from Daca struck the Enlightenment Age Europe until one day, the fabric just vanished. But how did it vanish? What makes it so special? Why did the muslin weavers have their fingers cut off? And the most interesting thing, is it possible to recover this lost treasure? This man, Saiful Islam, believes he can resurrect the manufacture of muslin. But how? There's no suitable cotton, no weavers. The last cotton plants used to spin muslin threads were seen 200 years ago. Fruity carpus grew in only one place on Earth, along the banks of the Meghna River, close to Daca. The plant has always been difficult to tame. Local residents had been purposefully keeping the seeds in warm oil before they put them into the soil, so that they would definitely sprout in the ground. As soon as the craft had been forgotten, plant vanished too. But long before that, Daca was a manufacturing center for dreamlike muslin as soft as a web. It was especially valued by the Greeks and Romans. The arrival of the East India Company, muslin started to be sold in Europe. Western customers lined up for woven air dresses. However, the British could not bear to see a dramatic flourish of Bengal. They decided to take the national treasure away. Robert Clive, the conqueror of Bengal, has openly claimed that the Bengalis are so rich and prosperous that they're almost asking for being conquered. For a start, the British decided to write down and duplicate the process of muslin weaving. But the process consisted of 16 unique stages, each of which took place in different settlements around Daca. The threads were handled exclusively by young women. They would drift into the moisture of dawn and spun on boats surrounded by water. Delicate and thin fingers, they carefully handled fragile cotton balls. And having sharp eyesight, they could see a thread as thin as a web. Just like in Andersen's fairy tale, only the chosen could see the threads. To other people, the looms seemed empty. The British intervened in the delicate process, trying to reduce costs of production for the Western buyer. They placed huge orders and constantly rushed the weavers. Those trying to please refused local customers and were drowning in debt. As a result, the East India Company simply collected the seeds of Fruity carpus and took them to England to start their own production. It was rumored that as they were leaving, they cut off the fingers of the Bengali weavers to prevent them from continuing their work. Although it no longer made sense, the cheaper English cotton quickly replaced expensive Bengali muslin. The craft had slowly died out in Daca. With the coming of the war, it was completely forgotten. Fruity carpus plants stopped growing flowers. Islam's team had to cultivate them from scratch. But how? There's not even a seed left in the world. Researchers had come a long way in their search for traces of plants, herbarium, anything. They visited Indonesia, the UK, and India. They were collecting samples of cotton plants, and with the help of technologies, the DNA of each sample was repaired in order to find the closest to Phytocarpus. In 2017, after a series of attempts, they managed to achieve a 70% match. It was a breakthrough. But the first batch of harvested cotton was not enough. Therefore, for yarn, they had to combine it with the ordinary one into a hybrid thread. But what do you do with a thread if you don't have a weaver who can handle it? In search of the weaver, Islam's team talked to 25 masters. But none of them wanted to work on this, until Al-Amin came along. He became a real savior to the Muslin Resurrection Project. The project participants installed temperature controls and humidifiers to create the specific conditions needed for making this tricky fabric. For the next 6 months, they had all been awaiting with excitement. After hundreds of snapped threads, months without sleep, Al-Amin presented his work to the team. The project team was shocked. Although the quality of the new muslin was nowhere near the original, and instead of 2,000 threads, only 400 were spun, Islam's team was cheering. Al-Amin managed to achieve more than any Daca weaver of his generation. Saiful Islam claims that muslin can be a global brand again, and a new flourishing of Bengal is coming. Now, has your understanding of Andersen's well-known fairy tale of the naked emperor changed? Perhaps the emperor wasn't naked after all. He may have been the image of a luxury-obsessed monarch that was willing to give any money for something extraordinary and authentic, and they didn't care what it was worth or how it was obtained. What do you think about that? Write your comments below.